Thank you for tuning in to Andronetalks Radio, gathering as one in our sovereign truth from a galactic perspective, exploring our world with new ideas, knowledge, and a promise of a better future. Galactic discussions for galactic-minded people. Andronetalks.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on Andronetalks Radio. I'm going to be talking with Chris today, and our primary topic or subject that we're going to discuss will relate to the yellow vests. However, I think I'd like to introduce some information regarding the implants that I had talked about earlier. And many people have contacted me regarding this. A few people have had dreams, and there was some information that came in from France. And so, just keeping everyone informed and updated, I think that this is something that I don't want to ignore, but I do want people to not be in fear over any of it, and to have a discussion about how these things can be resolved. And for people that are seers, that have intuition, you can test this, you can look and see if this in fact isn't something that is actually more prevalent than we realized as the veil gets lifted, as more and more information is being exposed, because the illusions are being stripped away. So that's why we're able to find some of this stuff, and it just keeps getting deeper and deeper. We're stumbling over things that is almost unbelievable. But anyhow, I feel like it's my responsibility to share. It's always very important to share the information. Whether I'm believed or not, I know that enough people that are intuitive can validate what I'm talking about. And that's what it's all about, is just getting the issue resolved. So with that said, I just want to bring in Chris right now. And hello, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Jessica. I'm doing great. Really happy to be back here, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, and maybe you might want to get a little closer to the mic. I think it sounds like you're a little farther away. But yeah, it's been a long while. We haven't talked. I know that the yellow vests have been not as active during the summer, but we're going to get into that in a moment. I just wanted to bring up these dog tags, or these they look like dog tags in a horizontal and implanted in the lower part of the neck, intersecting where the shoulder meets the bottom of the neck. And I just want you to share, some of the stuff that we saw when we were taking a look at you.
Yes, when you told me about, in one of the sessions like 2 days ago, asked me to check into my neck because I had a lot of problems previously, and I had a lot of pains since a few days. It seems like to be neck, and sometimes feeling like a intense pain, literally the intersection between the neck and the shoulder. When I checked, it was a little different than any other, the other people you discovered that through their sessions. For me, I saw a tag that was a rectangle but looked like full of LED lights, like you have some advertising display. Mm-hmm. And I could see different things showing up. It's almost like there was different programs, a program behind the program behind the program. And then finally, I saw S7. So when we discuss, based on what you got at the time, it was part of the soldier, something with soldier unit 7 or something like that. But then obviously there was something else that was put on the top of it, just a little bit below, more between the wings. and that was a little rectangle box that has a program. I think put by the, if I remember well, by the Abbot Grace as well, or another group came. I don't remember.
Or Cypher.
I can't remember.
Cypher.
Yes.
Cypher had labeled us and then was delivering us to the Grace and the hybrid Grace. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that second box, it was clearly pretty much meant to say that I was ready to go for slavery and maybe even refurbishing. I was not good enough anymore. So that was a surprise to see that. In the same time, I mean, the way when you start to understand, since we, session after session and month after month, we start to discover how these guys work, and they're literally Cypher selling humanity to the Abbot Grace, pretty much, and using humans and tagging them like animals. Absolute violation of their divine sovereignty.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought the audacity of it all, and just having that the power and everything. I know that Peter had warned us a while back that they were already doing certain types of trades, and Monarch, Mobius, and some of these other groups have been selling human parts and making all these arrangements on a galactic level. And I did actually have one evening where I saw some of that. It was like a marketplace. It was very, very strange, and at the same time it was dangerous. But I did have Gary there, who's an emerther, so he was kind of working. I think maybe showing me what was going on. And it was shocking. It was just like I couldn't believe what I was looking at, and I don't know if I have permission to go into details, but anyhow, the whole idea is that there's been a lot of power shifts, and whether or not someone has the okay to actually take and to decide, who the humanity belongs to, it's almost like, it felt like we were a throwaway society, or this is like a black market arrangement. And, how anything like this could be agreed upon without our consent. And so, like, it went to this level where, there are these, it looked like metallic dog tags, but and they might not be metallic, and of course they're etheric. So unless you can see through the dimensional space, you're not going to really notice it, but you might feel some pains and aches and pains and things and discomfort in those areas. And then in addition to that, below that was this, it looked like a neon sign. And I think there was like a warning or something on you. And not typically when you have a soldier, the people that are considered eligible or appealing for the role of a soldier would probably be in the range of like 17 to maybe 30 something or whatever. And so I was thinking maybe it had something to do with categorizing age groups and so forth, and how you got selected, or what you were thinking, what they were thinking about. They still regarded you as a soldier. They had me as non-personnel, which I'm not sure what what category that is, or non-category. Whether that meant I was completely disposable, or they had some other intentions for me. The fact that they had done this to me as well, and then there were others that I saw, like a kind of an alphanumeric grouping of numbers going across horizontally, but having this labeling. Now, recently we also had to deal with these barcodes that people were seeing on themselves. So they're trying a few different things, and I think we have to really hold our ground and just say that we're not consenting, and definitely asking to have all of these things removed. So with this conversation that I have with you and a few others, individuals that wanted to take a look and see what was going on, and finding these dog tags, we did get a video from Fabienne Girard, who was, listens to the show, and she said she had done a regression a while back. And actually, I didn't look at the date of when this was done, but they said that it was all done in French. So you watched that for us, and I was going to ask you for the interpretation of it.
Sure. I watched it this afternoon. So obviously, it was a lady called Fabienne doing a regression, hypnotic regression, I guess, with that other lady. And so obviously the lady started to see, they were talking about the fact that she could see these tags, these burnt symbols between, again, intersection between the neck and the shoulder. And they were in the shape of a steering wheel they have on the old boats, the wooden boats of the 18th and 17th and 19th century, where you have a centerpiece and then have all these pieces of wood going from the center towards a wood circle, right? Some people had that. It was kind of like, would look like a burn mark, and some others sometimes have a double circle. Instead of to have one, they had two circles. Then the lady in charge was asking to connect and to see if she could see someone, and she was like, yeah, I can see a gentleman that's dressed in black. And obviously the gentleman, she could see some lights of like laser lights coming from above. And when the lady asked her to follow that, she found a spaceship, one or two spaceship. So the lady asked her to put around her a shield of invincibility, and to be invisible. Sorry. And then she went in, and she could see that she was in a spaceship with humanoids. She can define pretty much as hybrids. And there was one smaller being, there was a gray, but instead of to be gray like the regular grays, he had like a greenish color skin. And on the table was they were talking, she thought it was like the pretty much the astral body or the light body of that person dressed in black, but she said it was like translucid pretty much, and it was not the exact shape of the human body. It was like a little bit more, I would say deformed, but it was just more energy. And when the lady was asking, okay, what are they doing to that light body? She says, well, based on what I can hear, they are just pumping the energy, literally like a battery. So she asked then the lady in charge asked the lady, okay, so can you see if these lasers are targeting everyone they take? Like, is that the only person? There are other people that were taken like that. She says, no, there are many others, and obviously not all of them where they're taken have those marks. Obviously they have some of them have marks, some of them don't have. And she asked, okay, but how do they choose who will be taken for energy and who is not? She says, well, obviously they go randomly, but obviously they are looking for people with a lot of light quotient or a lot of energy, a lot of force. So they can pull a lot of energy out of them. Then she was asking, is there another agenda behind it? She was like, no, it seems that they're just taking advantage of something that was there already done by other groups. They're just coming in and taking advantage of it by pumping energy as they want, without giving any warning or at least asking for authorization. They literally start to plug into a person and start pulling his energy out of him without their consent. So the lady was like, well, what can we do here? Is there anything we can do to at least protect people or let them make sure that they don't have the right to do that? And she was like, well, obviously I don't see. But then the lady says, well, what we can do maybe is you can maybe communicate to that person that you saw dressed in black and let him know everything you know, because the most important, as long as you're not aware of what's going on, of course they can do whatever they want. Once you're aware of it, you can make a statement saying, hey, you know what, this is my divine sovereignty, you're violating my free will here, and I do not consent to this. At least that's a first step. and then ask, of course, all these tags and implants to be removed. But it was very interesting to hear that video, that report.
Yeah, it is very interesting. It does look like it was done on the 5th, but
it was pretty recent.
It was pretty recent, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's when she published it.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if it was done earlier than that, and I haven't discussed it with her, but I thought it was quite interesting. Either way, I mean, it's the implants, you know, can look different. This is the first time I've seen the ones that look like dog tags. I've never seen this before, so I know this is new. The other ones, I mean, the barcodes are something that's a little bit has been around for a little longer, and even still, those I think had been done within the past year, in my opinion. There's a variety of other types of implants that have been going on for years, and what I thought was interesting of this video is what she said, that it didn't matter whether or not they inserted those implants, they were still able to utilize the implants to extract energy.
Yeah, so, that was definitely interesting. They were not the one that, you know, installed these implants, which kind of makes sense. So it seems that other groups are literally, you know, they use humanity like a huge Walmart. They come here and take whatever they want. I mean, this is crazy.
It is, and in this other dimensional space that I saw, I mean, it's a marketplace like you wouldn't believe. And
yeah,
it's not good. But anyhow, so we're, you know, if someone asked me, they say, well, I know that you're working hard to make some changes, and I you know, reminded them, I said, like, I think it's been 5 years, night and day. I wake up in the morning, I get the information. It goes on. Sometimes I'll wake up in the middle of the night and working until late in the evening with different people and different information that comes in through my my astral communication, as well as working with individuals, and then you know, sometimes gathering with a few different people regarding some bigger issues on the planet. So it's been going on for about 5 years straight, and it's my personal commitment, as well as many others, and I know that there are others that are listening, that as soon as they get the information, that's why I put it out there, that they're joining us. They're joining us with intention, and they're doing their part, and it's becoming more prominent. I mean, there's no way one person could really, I mean, they could, but it's difficult. It's extremely difficult, and it's not intended to be you know, 1 or 2 people carrying everything. This has to be a full intention. And in some ways, this is a battle. It's a war. And I'm not trying to be negative, but let's be honest. It's time that we have to be mature and take a look at what is actually going on, instead of ignoring things and trying to put on this facade of, you know, the love and light, or you know, you're manifesting this is negative information. Information is negative if you give no conclusion, you give no way out, if you have no other solutions around it. Otherwise, it is information coming in that is critical to be able to combat whatever you don't want. So, I mean, I guess it's looked at in a different approach. I mean, I know I have this approach that is perceived by some people that it's not love and light or whatever, but ultimately, if we ignore this stuff, it's not going to go away, and I don't care what people think their manifestation is going to do, it's not going to go away. And I've had long discussions with a few different people, and on a personal level, I've challenged people to either ignore it or to address it, and then they notice that things start moving along a lot faster when they address and see what it is, and then make those shifts accordingly. And so, yeah, it's not doom and gloom, but actually bringing forth information to help make the change.
No, and everyone definitely has his part to play here, and I understand some people might be afraid, or, you know, to deal with that, but I mean, everyone here has this piece of the puzzle, and Just some of the regression I've heard. I mean, it seems that it brings a lot of very important information and help you to put all the pieces of puzzle together, and for the bigger picture to be seen. Because I mean, everything is done in so many different layers. It's like a maze sometimes, trying to understand how all this is connected. And it's amazing when people start to stand up in their sovereignty and say, hey, you know what? I mean, it doesn't matter to hide, to put my hands in front of my eyes and pretend nothing is happening. It's lying to myself. At the end of the day, I'm not helping myself, so might as well just tackle the problem, face it, and then back for me personally, but that's really personal. I know it can be ugly. I know it's not pleasant to hear that, but you know what? I would rather know the truth and be able to see what is the solution and how I can disentangle from it, than to pretend that nothing is happening and then let them, get away with what they're doing. That is not happening on my watch, that's for sure.
Right.
And there are other people doing the same, and there are more and more people starting to get away because of your message. So that's really, really good.
I think so. A lot more people are feeling less like a victim and more, being able to take control of the situation on a personal level, and then feeling like they can make a difference on a grander scale, something like the Earth or galactically and so forth. But with that said, thanks for sharing, and let's go into what is going on now with the Yellow Vest movement.
Well, so I think the last report I did was like 2 months ago. So it seems like an eternity since the last one. A lot of things that happened in France, and on the personal level for me. Obviously, they made sure to keep us very busy, so we couldn't really focus on what happened in France. But I was keeping an eye on it every day, trying a little bit here and there to see what was going on. It was just not the time. So a lot of things happened. So I think end of June, beginning of July is the last report I did. At the time, there was one event that became major in France, other than the fact that there were doings. There are, I think, act number 43 now. It's 43 weeks in a row.
Wow.
Summer was a little slower because, of course, people need to rest and vacation and the nice weather and all that. But now they're ready to go full force again in September, which is, a big problem with the government, because they thought that they have kind of like managed to control them and eventually kill the movement, and they realized it's not the case at all. They were just recovering and recuperating to go stronger for the rest of the year. But different events happened. So a few months ago, an old lady died at the very beginning in Marseille, Gilets Jaunes, and she was an old lady, 70 years old. It was at a window, I don't know, maybe third floor, fourth floor, and she was just recording with her phone. And obviously, the police at the time shot. They said, based on the media, they said it was a tear gas grenade. And normally the tear gas grenade needs to be, by law, they have to shoot in the air, and it's like a bell, it goes up and then goes down. And obviously in this case, they literally shoot at her face because she was recording. And there's a video that we might put in here that's in French, sadly, but it's pretty clear. You will see the face of that woman. She died literally a few hours later because she was directly targeted directly targeted. That's a fact. There's no way in the world that's an accident. The police came after, removed all the evidences, removed everything. The family can still not have access to the how you call it again, when that special doctor, the autopsy. They don't want to release the autopsy because, of course, there is a lot of damaging information there that will, pretty much show the police as responsible. So she died, and the media pretty much said, it was just an accident. Now we discover it is not. The captain or the commandant that was in charge of that platoon of police, instead of to be, to have trouble with the internal police, I call that, there is a police of the police, right? We call it that in French. He got rewarded by a medal from Macron for a great job. First, 21st of June, National Day of Music in France, and it's in many countries in Europe. It's the longest day of the year, right? So on the 21st, they have parties everywhere, music, bands, people playing in the street. It's very nice, very
Is that
very
Bastille
joyful.
Day?
No, that is
No, that
Bastille
comes
Day.
later?
It says 14th of July.
Okay.
So that was 21st of June. There were a bunch of kids near the water, near a river. They were just having a DJ and they were playing. And obviously, 3 o'clock in the morning, the police came and asked them to stop. But they don't have to stop. Okay, it was free. They could do it, and they had the permission of the city. And when the kids didn't want to stop after 10 minutes, quickly the police, I would say Robocop, came in and started to charge them. And they panicked. They didn't know what to do. They tear gassed them and everything. And they were so afraid they jumped into the water. Now, 8 or 9 of them jumped into the water. And then what happened is several of them came out and one never came out. Never. His name was Steve. He was a young kid, very loving, very nice kid. And he drowned. So for a week, there wasn't the news. But then, the media was kind of like shutting down. And they tried to push, the subject on something else. And eventually the Yellow Vests start to take that matter in hands. And everywhere in France for weeks after weeks after weeks, and the politicians start to get into it. They were asking, where is Steve? So it took literally 30 days before the government decided to finally send, 39 days to find, under the pressure. They couldn't make it. I mean, it became too hard for them. So they finally sent some boats, find the body. And they send it for autopsy. Of course, after 39 days, they know it's very clear that the evidence of what really happened is very hard to find because the body is completely decomposed. And they said that it might be done on purpose to not go directly find the body right away because they would have the evidence of police brutality. So, and finally, when they finally found the body, the first thing Macron and his prime minister did was to say that, well, we know the police has nothing to do with this. It's an accident. They didn't even had the time to do the autopsy. So again, one of the same thing over and over. They do police brutality. People die. People are in the bed, but they don't want to acknowledge any responsibility, and they will most of the time trying to put it on the, the responsibility on the victims, right? So that was a big thing. Something else is that there are some movement in the Yellow Vests that start to check. Some judges started to talk about the fact that the Freemasons are completely. I mean, how to explain that? The whole government, the whole power in France is completely infested by Freemasons. That's the only way you can be in power anyway in France. So it goes from government members, Senate members, Congress members, it's like the equivalent of Congress and Senate in France, all Freemasons, all the people in power, the ministers and all that, all Freemasons. In the justice systems, all the judges, the high judges, Freemasons, police, and the police, same thing, commandant and all that, those can be the one that are in charge. And I mean, it doesn't matter wherever you look, they're all, I mean, it's infested. So they started to give list of each people and what lodge they're connected to and saying, hey, the problem is this. Supposedly when you are part of the French government, you're here to work for the people. You represent the people, right? The people is your boss, literally. Mm-hmm. But when you're Freemason, it's completely different. They have created the Republic through the revolution of 1789 in France and 96 in 86 or 96 in the US. I don't remember. 86, 96, I don't remember. I'm sorry, I have I think 86. In the United States, they're the same one that created that, Republic and that whole, constitution. We have the same in France that there is in the US. But anyway, all that anyway, so that, over time they have placed to every main position someone of a high level of Freemasonry. The problem is that when you're Freemason, you cannot, as we say, you cannot serve two gods in the same time. So you cannot be in place in France for the Republic and serving the people. When you're Freemason, you serve whatever agenda you have. And that is definitely against the law in France. So they start to mention these lists online. And of course, you realize that everyone, I mean, even Le Pen, anyone, the good one, the bad ones, are all Freemasons. Even those who are supposed against Macron for the Yellow Vest, all Freemasons. Head of the unions, Freemason. I mean, it's infested. So they started to clean the house in Monte Carlo. They sent letters to the Prince of Monaco, letting him know that since it's part of France in some way, that its justice system is completely infected, and therefore they will never be able to give the right justice, the right to do their job. To supposedly the justice in France is blind, meaning they're not working for the government. It's completely separate. Well, it's not the case. So now they start to understand why they have, over time, since Macron has been in place. Macron was the last nail in the coffin. They have worked on these agendas for the last, through every president, and Macron was the last one that was supposed to bring, the whole shebang, the last nail in the coffin, and bring everything together to literally sell the soul of France, sell everything that belongs to the French sovereignty, and empty, pretty much hollow out France from everything that made France France for 2,000 years, and to confirm France to the European community. So pretty much, they do the same in every country. So that is one other thing. Several journalists lately are pushing the fact that maybe it would be a good thing that the police start shooting and killing some people in the Yellow Vest, because maybe then the Yellow Vest will understand that you cannot go against the government.
Who says this? The
some
media?
Journalists. Yep.
Some journalists, really?
Yeah. One of the journalists.
Are they assassins or what? What are they?
Oh, they say, it would be sad, but you know what? If there's a few deaths and a few casualty, maybe they will understand that you can go against the police and against the government, because the police represent the government, and that's why I send you a video when you realize that some of these police union guys and police officers and wives of policemen says the police is literally used as a tool by the government to push away and pretty much shut down the Yellow Vest protest, because it is not allowed to complain about whatever the government is doing. The free speech has been completely shut down in France, and it becomes a police state. Since they have destroyed the constitution of France on the 1st of January 2017, that was before even Macron was elected. So the whole election with Macron already it's illegal, because there was no constitution at that point, so they shouldn't have those elections. And then this is why, they realize at this point, things are getting to a point where the media now is pushing several times. The next minister says, we should have, the police should take their guns and just shoot, for God's sake, These thugs thinking they can provoke the republic by beating up cops. So they are pushing the agenda of being violent against the Yellow Vest. They try in every way possible to shut them down. The problem is that they will never shut down the Yellow Vest. It's so deep in the ground. It's so deep. It's like the resistance in France during the Second World War.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They will never shut up.
They're making it. Yeah, they're doing something to the people that is quite devastating, and it's going to be really hard for them to have something that's civil in the sense for that. Yeah, they're feeling. You just can't strip people of their dignity, and that level of cruelty from. It's going to have a huge impact. Something that's going to be really hard to recover, and it's like Macron looks so mind controlled and so desensitized that he almost. Seems like a robot, and they say the robo-cops, the robo-leader.
Yeah.
And so let's talk a little bit, it is putting a strain on the police. I think the police are having a hard time, and they're actually committing suicides.
Yeah.
That not all of them are the robo-cops, and I'm sure that they just, like you said, they haven't had any vacation, they haven't had any, or holiday as you call it.
4 years.
for 4 years, and nonstop being on call at all times, and having the nation in a state of emergency. That definitely takes a toll. So you've got a really vulnerable situation that is not good for anyone. It's not good for Europe. It's not good for any situation. And I want you to bring up something that you shared with me that someone said a while back while you were sitting in a taxi and having a discussion with someone. I think you said you were...
Yeah, I was a taxi driver, for a short while in Brussels. And
How many years ago was that?
Oof, that was 96, 97.
So that 1996, 97, okay.
Mm-hmm. And I was a taxi driver, and I took someone from the airport, and the gentleman was from Wall Street. And we were talking because he saw a book I was reading, and he says, well, you better buy some silver and gold, my friend. I was like, why is that? Well, because, what's going to happen is that the euro will crash. I was like, when? He said, it's known. It's going to crash. And when that crash, the American dollar will crash 3 weeks later. So it's known, and it's pretty much something that's pretty much set in stone. It's known. The way everything is set up and built up, it's going to happen. Now, that was in 96. Okay? I didn't pay more attention to that, and I didn't have a dime to buy gold or silver anyway. So lately I discovered, it's like a few months ago, I know that when they created, we need to go a little bit back in history here. When the Second World War started, of course, the Nazi wanted to have that Über Deutschland. I talked about that in other reports of the Yellow West. And their goal was to have the big Germany, which was pretty much encompassing all Europe. Of course, supposedly they lost, and then 3 or 4 of the previous Nazis for a few years kept themselves pretty quiet, and then they came out and created the Treaty of Rome first, and then the ancestor of the European community, and then he became the EU. The EU is the exact project that they had a long time ago in their mind, the Über Germany. Now, of course, they couldn't sell it like that, so they sell the image of all the countries united, no borders, one main currency, and of course, the strongest country overall, the most powerful one, was Germany. So Germany was extremely powerful, especially West Germany. But then they had to merge the two in the 90s after the wall of Berlin went down. They merged the two, the East Europe and West Europe, to kind of like to weaken the economy of West Germany, because East Germany was very poor, but still Germany was very strong. So the goal, obviously, of the plan was to reach a point where German economy, which is holding the whole European economy, would eventually go down. We're talking about that a few years ago. Well, what's happening is that like it happened here in 2008 with the real estate went down. I mean, I don't remember the name. I'm sorry. I have a blank now. 2008, the whole American economy went down, right? Because of some people creating these fake bonds and fake options, and people were buying that, and mortgage was supposed everybody could buy everything as much as they want.
Messed up the entire real estate market.
Yes. Right. Well, they create something, the Deutsche Bank, which is the number one bank in Germany, which is the most powerful bank in Europe and sometimes even in the world, has created something similar, but to an extent where it's like 1,000 times worse than what happened in the US. So the Deutsche Bank right now is in a situation where they're ready to explode. The whole thing is ready to crash. It's holding on the string right now. If that happens, every bank in every country of Europe will go down. That will be pretty much the end of the European economy, literally overnight. So that is a big problem. Now, on one hand, you have that, and the second biggest country, the most powerful, is France. And guess what? France is doing the same. They know the Dutch Bank is going to go down on one hand, and the other hand, you have Macron literally selling France, the highways to other countries, the airport, everything belongs to France. is sold to other countries. So they make tons of money, and France lose everything that's theirs, their whole sovereignty. Not talking about the fact that people are paying so much tax, the poorest are paying all the taxes, and the richest, I'm talking about the 0.1%, are making so much money because they don't have to pay tax. Every 6 months, there is $46 billion profit made by these guys. And there are 4 or 5 of them. Just a tit. By the way, good friends of Macron. Right, it's a little payback from, since they own all the medias in France, television, newspapers, and magazines. That's how they helped him to become a president. And now I guess he's giving back to them for the great service they gave him. But anyway, all this has one purpose, is to destroy economically and on every level possible Europe. Now, the report that the video I've sent you, when they talk about that, I'm not agreeing with their goals, because they said that if Europe goes down, that means every country will be free. They need to understand that they have plans. They plan stuff way ahead. If they destroy one thing, it's because they have another plan behind it. But that doesn't mean that they will succeed in their plan, right? So they try right now to push that agenda, and it was known already in '96. They already told me that. So I mean, it is not new. It's not new at all. They knew about that all the way, all along. But they have a lot of patience. If they take 70 years to get to their goal, it's okay for them.
Yeah,
that is the situation in France and in Europe. So,
like I said, it's a contagious thing.
Yeah.
If it doesn't get managed correctly, and there isn't on the issues of human rights violations and the horrible way that these people are being treated, and because that they've created sort of an island amongst themselves, because of their, not really speaking English, speaking French, not really communicating with others in some ways. And I'm glad that, this has kind of forced them to come out, be more vocal, and go on to YouTube and the internet and try to share with people, leak some of this information out. Otherwise, we wouldn't know anything about it, because it's like he created some kind of invisible wall around it, right? You're limited on as far as what is the real news regarding what's going on, and that's the same thing with so many countries that are protesting. Nobody even knows about it.
Nope.
There's other things going on around the world. One thing that you mentioned is something that happened in Hong Kong that was similar to what happened in France, and everyone was up in arms as far as human rights violations.
Yeah.
And it was, not even close to the scale of what's been going on in France.
Oh, no. I mean, yes, there is 1 million people in the street, and yes, of course, the number is 10 times more than there is in France, right? But of course, the media in France is doing a fantastic job. When there are 300,000 people in Paris, they say there are like 20,000, and they just show a little bit, and so done is that on purpose. Yeah, so in Hong Kong, they were manifesting, obviously protesting for several weeks, and for the right reason, obviously, because they wanted to have their freedom and sovereignty from the Chinese government. Now, 1,700,000 people in the street, of course, all with umbrellas, because there are cameras everywhere. So that's a way to kind of hide their identity, I guess. I don't know. And eventually the Chinese regime start to be very impatient and start to become more violent, when before they were not really violent. They start to have the same techniques as in France, rubber cups, tear gas. And when they start to bombard with tear gas, the first day they did it, it went viral everywhere in the news, even in the US. Oh my God, it's so inhumane. They use tear gas on these poor people. At that point already, it was like, is that a joke? I mean, have you seen what they did in France? It's 1 million times worse. That was already a uproar. And then through a week ago, it was on the news everywhere that every country was connecting to each other, calling each other like, oh, we need to tell China, we don't want a second Tiananmen. We've seen that woman that she lost her eye because of a rubber bullet. This is unacceptable. And the whole international community went against China for that. And that really made me sick. Because when there is a video here that I've sent you guys, I guess you might put it in the end. We'll see. But it is very, very descriptive of what's happening in France, and you see the wounds they have there. It's insane. We are already at 30 people lost an eye. I don't know how many people in the coma, how many people lost their hands and feet and stuff. I mean, it's insane. I'm not talking about the police violence, grabbing people out of nowhere, beating them up, throwing them by the hair, women beating the crap out of them, old people, men, anyone, just because they have something yellow on you, put you in jail, sending you without lawyers, making you sign papers, leaving you 48 hours without food, without able to pee, to nothing, treat you like an animal, and sometimes send you to jail right away. Because we think you might do something. You might do something in the future. So eventually you might, so therefore you're guilty, boom, go to jail. What? Since when? That is what's happening in France. And since the whole justice system is completely corrupted, well, guess what? So it was very sickening for me to see that, because, I mean, if the news had the balls, I'm sorry, in the world and in Europe to really show what's happening in France, the Yellow Vest would be, that movement would be done a long time ago, and Macron will be out. I can tell you that. Right. The UN has mentioned that it's a crime against humanity. I mean, there are so many groups that condemned France. They don't care. Macron is on his throne thinking he's fucking sorry for that. It's freaking Jupiter, and that he lives in another world where he can do, it's like Louis XVI over again.
And this is because you said that something to the effect of his leadership in this EU agenda. Yes. And Merkel is more in the background now.
Well, Merkel and her sister Theresa May, of course, are part of the same program. They were put in place for a certain reason, but Merkel definitely strongly connected to the 1945 regime in Germany. Let's just call it like that. She was put in place. She loves power. It was known. She loves power. She doesn't care. She literally destroyed Germany by bringing all these millions of refugees opening the borders. And now she acknowledged that she made a mistake, but it's done. The economy went down. The whole manufacturing jobs, which was the strongest part of Germany, is literally disappearing, like they did here in the US for many years until Obama was there, and then it became even worse. They do the same thing, pretty much. What Clinton was supposed to do here, I mean, they are doing it in Europe. They didn't have a Trump to stop it over there. That's what's happening. And I'm not saying Trump is good, not good. I just say, at least we don't have to deal with the agenda that they had in plan for the US here. But so France, Macron was always his dream, was once eventually Jean-Claude Juncker, which was the president of the EU, would resign, because, I mean, this guy's a mess. There is a video, I never showed you that. There's a video when he says that, he says literally, I talked to the representative of all the other planets, and we agree that, and I was like, what? He says planet. It doesn't say other countries, other planets. That was insane. Anyway.
And what was the agreement?
I don't know. He was talking about what's happening, with all these groups of, sovereign groups like the Yellow Vest and all that happening everywhere. But anyway, instead of to say I talked to the representative, the leaders of every country, he said every planet. I mean, we know the guy's drunk. He's always drunk. But that was interesting lapsus.
Yeah, well, this is, you have to think about the walk-in that's speaking through them.
Uh-huh.
And, they're not really just talking to humanity. They're talking to everyone else that's here on the planet with us. And they know what's going on. And I've been saying this for a while. These are galactic agendas. These are happening, all around us. But, it's hard for people to imagine. But it slips. It comes out. And then you
Well,
say, "Oh, that you laugh about it. It's a joke, whatever." But
yeah, he's drunk. It's not his fault. Well,
hmm
knowing that the UN is the Galactic United Nation, really, and the EU is a branch of that. I mean, I'm not surprised when he says he talked to other leaders of other planets. I mean, yeah, that's exactly what it is. But so anyway, when his term was over, normally Macron was fighting to have one of the French people in charge of the EU. And Merkel, I don't know what happened there. There was supposed to be the perfect couple, Germany and France. She pushed back, and they put a German woman as the head of the EU. So he was very pissed about that. So this agenda didn't work. Now, what he's doing is he had a G7 that happened like 2 weeks ago, a week and 2 weeks ago. And he literally played like the savior of the planet, the savior of Amazonia, the savior of this. I mean, he want to work and make the planet better and this and that. It's like the new leader of the world. That's what he tried to do. And everybody was impressed by his work. People don't understand that what he was doing was pushing an agenda that's completely EU agenda anyway. Carbon tax and like they want to do here with the Green Deal. No more cows, no more meat, no more cars, no more gas, no more nothing. Back to the Middle Age to save the planet because the planet is going to die in 12 years. They push that there in France and Europe too, big time. So he's at the point where he's not succeeding in taking over in Europe the way he wanted, but by Germany getting weaker, he is in a position where he tries at least to regain control of Europe because it has been his dream to be the king of Europe.
So that is he one of those scheduled candidates to be this Antichrist role that everyone's
absolutely
kind of waiting, expecting for, and yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you should see it's so pathetic. It's so disconnected from reality. Well, he's condemning other countries for the violence of their people. That's what he's doing. He's condemning, what was it? What country was that? He was condemning. Oh, yeah. It was Ukraine, because some of the people start to fight against the government and they elected another president, which like Trump was a guy, was a celebrity in television. And they elected him in Ukraine because they didn't want the old government that was working with the deep state, obviously. So, and he's condemning other countries without looking his own backyard.
Well, of course not. It's a distraction.
Oh my God, this is
look at this over here. Don't look at my backyard, but look at what everyone else is doing.
Yes, and now just to show you how there is no justice in France anymore, he said if anyone is unhappy with the way things work in France about human rights, they can go directly to the human rights court of the EU. Now, by law, in order to get to that level of court, you need first to go to the regular court of France. You have to go and appeal. And if that doesn't work, then you have to go to the kind of like Supreme Court of France. If that doesn't work, then only you can go to. But now it's literally saying there's no need because there is no justice system that's going to protect you anyway. You need to go directly to the European one. That means the French justice system doesn't exist anymore. Wow. If you want to have rights. Then he said, oh, by the way, one of the other journalists was saying, well, if the retirees, are complaining about the fact they don't have money, well, by the time Macron is finishing his mandate, most of them will be dead anyway. So, they're useless. So why should we listen to the retirees that don't have enough money to live? That is the mentality that the government is projecting on the people. And someone made a very interesting analogy. He says, well, this is the Nazi system. You need to those who living in Europe might remember throughout history because we learned that in history, but in the 30s, in the 20s, after the First World War, Germany went into a huge crisis. Economically it was really bad. And that's how the Hitler came to the power and supposedly reunited Germany as a strong country, the Aryan race, and blah 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 blah. Right? It took several years for that to happen, in the 30s specifically, and in the 30s they were doing the exact same thing that it's happening here right now.
Well, this is like Les Miserables, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, everything from Antifa being the brown vest of Germany, everything is a copycat of what happened in the 30s and 40s. And so that whole EU and that whole socialist program that is pushed with the Green Deal and the supposed planet dying into all that is, for me, seriously connected to that whole Nazi agenda.
Well, they're assuming that since it worked before, they're going to use this card again. But I think the people are all the wiser. However, they're really too isolated, and they're not getting they're getting exposure. I don't know if people it's too hard to look at. It's so violent, and I think they need help. I think we need to send them energy. I think we need to have some type of liberation there. This is a strong indication of a slave system, and how that the government can be wielded and manipulated in a way that's very criminal, very criminal on a human level, and a galactic level. And I will say galactic level because we are being observed, and so this is not acceptable in any level. And if we don't send energy, I mean, there's so many other nations that will be impacted by this. If it, like I said, it seems like, well, if we ignore it, it will spread. They'll see that they get away with it in one nation, they'll want to do it in another, and we just can't have that happening.
No. Well, the whole, I was telling you, a little earlier, the whole Yellow Vest protest, and I know, for some of the listener, they might have forgotten, but the whole Yellow Vest protest is an agenda originally from those in powers. You can call it Rothschild, Soros, Deep State, whatever. Doesn't matter, because every revolution of their revolution had a color. In Ukraine, it was the orange. I think in the Arabic countries, like a few years ago, it was green. So they give a color to their revolutions. But the Yellow Vest was also something that was part of the agenda. They wanted to create that whole civil unrest situation to be able to install, to reinstate the police state, to have a good excuse.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, what they didn't realize is that because of the change in the shift of consciousness here on the planet, because of the work of guides and amazing divine galactic groups out there, plus you and others, obviously there is a shift in the consciousness level of this planet, and more and more humans now are starting to realize that they have their own sovereignty, and they fight for their own sovereignty. So they didn't expect that. They created the Yellow Vest movement. They copyrighted the name on 1st of January 2017, before the election of Macron in Denver, Colorado. Okay, then Macron was elected. On the 1st of January, they destroyed literally the French Constitution, null and void. Macron was elected in May. Yellow Vest started in November. All they had to do was to push the pressure a little bit more, and just kill it with that gas price increase, and that was it. And they even had to put some gas on the fire, as we say, because they needed to trigger that movement by having that designer, that German, very famous designer living in Paris, with a yellow vest on the Champs-Élysées on, where was it? Just October, I guess, a month before the Yellow Vest started in November 2018, sorry. It was with a yellow vest, and that was kind of a trigger, symbolically, lightening the whole Champs-Élysées with red light, which is color blood. And then all they had to do to have one of their minions, supposedly a woman that's an idiot, seriously, that start to do a complaint about how the rich and they increase the gas, and the government is eating lobster every day, and we poor people, and it went viral, 5 million views in 24 hours, which no one has, especially someone that has a channel with like 20 people on it.
Are you talking about Karl Lagerfeld?
Yeah, Karl Lagerfeld.
Yeah, in which he passed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And then Jacqueline Moreau was that woman that was used working with the government in some way to trigger that whole yellow vest through the social media. And a week later, that was it. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of people in the street. So they triggered and created that yellow vest movement with the expectation of two things. One, of course, they will be able to, once the people in the street, they can pretend, oh, look at, they're so violent. We have all the media that are in their pockets of the government shooting videos of people fighting with the police. What they don't shoot is what happened before. When the protests are very peaceful, they just chant and just very joyful, and the police out of nowhere start to tear gas them and beat the crap out of them. So of course they're going to react. I mean, come on. So all that was built to create these new laws that will lead to a police state, the same way they did in Germany in the 30s. Same thing. Nothing changed.
Well, Karl Lagerfeld was German, but
yes,
even more so, he was galactic, and he was from Aldebaran. And the Aldebaran told me, they said that they did not give him permission to get involved. He was not supposed to be involved in any of this, and they warned him, and of course he didn't listen, and so that was the end result of it. But I do see that there's it was kind of a similar type of energy that was inserted to give power to this movement, which he was not supposed to have done.
Exactly.
And just further complicated it.
Yeah, so of course the whole agenda for the Macron agenda was, coming groomed through the Rothschild banking, was to serve the mighty and the powerful, and to destroy France. Now, the only way to do that, knowing that French people have a big mouth, and last time they went in the street was in '68, and even then the police had ordered to never, ever, ever beat up someone on the floor, ever. So that was completely different at the time. And before that, of course, was the French Revolution, and it was the exact same thing. The yellow vests of that time were called the sans culottes, without trousers. That's pretty much what they called the people in the time that created the revolution in France. And they were not the very poor. They were pretty much the merchants, and the people had businesses that went in the street because they couldn't handle the taxes, the same way it happened here. So they're not very creative. They do the same thing over and over and over. But here the difference is, with the change of consciousness that's happening, they didn't expect that eventually it will take a different turn. They try to control it, but they reach a point where Macron is in a position that's very comfortable right now, because he's going far away. He didn't expect the yellow vest to last 43 weeks and to start for another, 6, 7, 8 months now. He didn't expect that. He thought he would be able to shut it down very fast and easy. The problem is that the French people have memory, and now they start digging through the social media, start looking into things and discovering what was the whole agenda behind it. So, of course, now they realize that they are united as one, as French, as daughters and sons of that land that have history and ancestry, and there is a soul to France that belongs to France, like there is for every country. And he didn't expect that, and that is the big problem they have. So right now, it's in Italy, it's the same. It's in different countries, especially on Czechia and Slovakia and all these countries. It's the same thing. They fight over there too, in Croatia. I don't know about Germany. I know that this is the thing we don't know, because all the media shut down each countries. They isolate the news, so you don't really know what's happening in other countries. It's done on purpose. And
that's why it is critical that the French people, they're taking a risk, but they're putting the information on YouTube to let everyone know what's going on. And more nations should be doing that, and so that we can assist and support whatever they're doing. It's not just about being rebellious against their nation or anything like that, but understanding that they're rolling out or whatever type of agenda that is on a universal scale that is supporting whatever slave system that they wanted to bring in regarding what's happening in the EU, and we know that there's many nations that are oppressive to the people, and of course the human rights violations. I really strongly believe that these are fueled by off-world beings and hybrids that are planning on, the ones clearly that are involved with labeling and marking humanity right now, putting those tags on them and implants and so forth. So, and we know people are feeling the effects. They're getting depleted, they're getting distracted. Some people have trouble, focusing. All these implants do all of these different things, even manipulating people. Like someone said to me something about they have this technology where they could just puppet people. They don't even have to be there. And I've heard this before, and I've seen it, actually. I've seen people just shift and start doing these really bizarre things, and it's like, are you trying to do this, or is this, what's going on here? And they're like, I'm out of my body, I don't know what's going on. And it's a very dangerous thing, very, very dangerous thing. They don't get their way, they're going to try different things. But I think we need to be very vigilant and stay with it. We're making some progress. I guess, every time we do something, we start to have some kind of victory, then they roll out another program, which is something that, we've been struggling over the past couple of weeks. Another one just, showed up. And then, of course, the dog tagging and all this other stuff. So, this stuff has to be dealt with, can't be ignored. We have to be, to continue on. And I think that we should never get discouraged, should continue going.
Never. And
keep everyone informed, because with this knowledge, I think it is powerful. I know that people said, well, with knowledge also comes responsibility. Yes, because you can't just halfway get involved in this. It's like, you start doing it, and then if you start sending out energy to support, you can't just drop the ball and pull back, because the energy start coming back at you. It's sort of like a force type of experience. So I think we are learning, we're growing, we're understanding, and people are sharing information. And so let's just keep going. And now that the summer's passed and things are going to probably amp up again, let's keep us informed, Chris, and let us know what's going on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me today, and I'm grateful for those who are sending positive intention, not just for France, because it's not just about France, it's about humanity here. It's about the whole planet. But France is obviously a anchor point of something pretty severe. If we can shift that, of course, that's going to be having a domino effect, I'm pretty sure, on other countries. So I'm grateful. Thank you so much for the support. And I don't know if you're going to put some videos eventually in the comment section.
Yes. Yeah, what we'll do is we'll link all the videos that you've suggested, even though some of them will be only in French.
Yeah.
There are people that are listening that understand French, and they'll probably be able to listen to it. I suppose that if anyone has any questions, they can post it in the comment section, and then
sure.
Chris, if you want, you can answer some of them. And I'll do my best to respond.
There is one thing I want to say. That video that's in French, only in French, give just a word of explanation. It's done by the Yellow Vest themselves. That's the only video. If they could do that in English, it would be pretty much the only source I would use, because it's resourceful. They literally shown everything from inside. That video is showing the hypocrisy of the media and the government when it comes to two things. It started with someone talking about the mayor that died because of a car accident, and becomes like a national day of mourning. And on the other hand, you start seeing the picture of all the people that got injured, severely injured by the police brutality, and they show this duality between what the government and media is showing and supposedly important for them, and at the same time not showing the reality of what's really going on. Then there is a portion a bit further when you see a journalist crying, and that guy is Dufresne. It's a gentleman that specialized in the police brutality for many years and is recording everything, especially since the yellow vest. That poor guy is barely sleeping, and you see him bursting in tears because he just cannot hold it anymore. What he's seeing every day is just beyond what's humanly bearable. And there is a lot of great information in there. I was trying to translate it, but it takes me so much time. I'm not a professional in that, and tap is with two fingers. It takes some time, so eventually I'm...
Okay, people consider what's going on in France might be equivalent to what happened in the United States Civil War, where people just fought against each other, and even the Revolutionary War, because we always say, well, this was the Brits against the Americans. Well, technically, there were all the Brits, all the British people that came over here. They pretty much knew each other. They were relatives. They were split up in families, and they fought against each other in the Revolutionary War. It's devastating when you think about it.
Right,
and same thing with the Civil War over here. It's the same thing. It's just people, same country, coming against each other. And what's happening in France? This is what's heartbreaking. It's one thing another nation is coming in, or a bunch of horrible criminals or whatever. But when it's from your own people, that's a really hard thing to comprehend.
Well, for me, without the influence of these dark systems, that are imposing their power on this planet for so long, humanity in their divine sovereignty would never hurt each other. It's not a war between humans, it's a war between non-humans, using humans and dividing them, and to pretty much divide them, conquer, and then be able to, use them, for their own will. I mean, it's just disgusting what's happening. So that whole thing, the religion, dividing religion, races, male, female, all that is nothing to do with divine sovereignty of humans.
It was a bigger issue. It was a bigger issue when the Notre Dame burned down than it is when all these people get killed. And, like I said, it's the mind control.
Oh, by the way,
it's amped up on a higher level, and the implants that they didn't have during the Revolutionary times in the Civil War. Go ahead, Chris.
No, by the way, we'll talk about it. It reminds me of the Rainbow Children and that regression that Jennifer did. Was Jennifer or?
Yeah, it was Jennifer.
Yeah, it was very interesting, the information about, because we had a report on the news that there is a pollution of supposedly the copper. The roof was made of copper, and the copper created toxic product by burning, and the schools around supposedly are closed now. They don't reopen, which is very strange, because I was thinking suddenly when I heard that about the kids around that church, and they were targeting obviously all the children, the Rainbow Children in Paris and everywhere in France, and maybe even bigger. So I was wondering what was going on there, but obviously, they closed all the schools. They said they acknowledged that obviously there is some copper pollution, that it's too dangerous to open the schools around. So they are literally clearing the whole space around now, around the church, raising billions of dollars, and not a single dime is going to go to the church pretty much, because they want to turn that into a commercial. We don't even know what they want to do. I mean, this is insane. But I thought about that.
And I think there was lead too from the fire. There was some lead in there.
Yes,
and it's brilliant what the regressions have been bringing up. I'm grateful that Jennifer and Sage has brought up some really interesting, very revealing information. Hakita, that they've, everyone has something to say, to share, and contribute, and this has been a real breakthrough for a lot of us. Some of the information is a little shocking.
Yeah, and this is a crucial time to engage here and work with you, Jess. I mean, like Jennifer or Akira and others. Don't be afraid. You have the idea of how much information you hold in your soul is holding in your subconscious mind, and obviously you have a lot of information to bring that can help, Jessica in this case, to go further into the investigation and clearing what's really going on here. I mean, it's a crucial time, It's a race going on here because they are pushing their agenda big time. So the more we wait to give information to help us to go further, well, the more we give them time to do their crap, and that's not allowed.
Right. Yeah. No. It's really hard for people to open up and share information like this, and like I said, I'm grateful that people are willing to.
I am too.
To share, and everyone that has participated is for the larger group of those that are listening, and so then people getting the information, then we know where to focus.
Exactly. So. And I'm the first, Jess, since the last 2 years we worked together. I mean, I was involved with so many things without knowing it. I'm so grateful to finally be able to see what's really going on, so I can finally do something about it and clear myself. And even if it's hard sometimes because, heavily targeted, in the same time, guess what? I mean, I've never felt better and more of myself now than 50 years before that. So it is not easy, but in the same time, I mean, it's a step every time you do something and work with you, or it's a regression session, doesn't matter, and help the whole community here working towards freedom. It's very important. You help yourself, you help others. It's a true service to others, But having said that, just thank you so very much. And I hope we're not gonna wait 2 more months before the next report. I'm gonna keep an eye on what's going on, and I will keep in touch.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Chris, and keep listening, everyone. We will keep you updated on the Yellow Vest going forward. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Andronetalks Radio. Join us on YouTube channel Jessica Ariel Morocco, and visit her website at www.readingsbyariel.com.